There's a weed growing in your backyard right now that ancient Chinese medicine called a natural antibiotic, and you've probably ripped it out with your bare hands and thrown it straight in the trash. It's not garlic, it's not ginger, it's not anything on a normal antibacterial foods list. Quick note before we start. This channel is all about growing food that actually does something for you. Hit subscribe before this one, because it's going to change what you look for at the nursery. Here's why this matters. Doctors are running out of antibiotics that work. Bacteria have learned to beat them. So scientists are going back to plants, testing them against the same superbugs your doctor worries about. The 6 plants on this list aren't exotic. Most grow in regular dirt, in a regular backyard. No greenhouse required. But almost nobody grows them. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why that's a mistake. Let's start with the one sitting in steakhouses across America right now. It's horseradish. You've had it 100 times. You've probably never once thought about it. That's about to change. Pull a mature horseradish root out of the ground, and it doesn't look like a vegetable. It looks like a thick, pale white baseball bat buried in the dirt. But the real story is inside it. Horseradish keeps 2 ingredients sealed off from each other inside that root, completely separate. Harmless, as long as they stay apart. The second you grate it, they collide. That's the burn. That's the eye-watering hit at a steakhouse. That's a chemical reaction happening in real time on your plate. So researchers tested that reaction in a lab. It killed E. coli. It killed staph. At concentrations so low, it's almost unfair. Then they compared it to something familiar. Sodium benzoate, the preservative in thousands of packaged foods on grocery shelves right now. Horseradish beat it by up to 100 times. Here's the detail that really got me though. Most preservatives weaken as conditions around them change. Horseradish doesn't. It holds its strength no matter what. Which means that jar in your fridge isn't just a condiment, it's chemistry. Folk medicine used it for bronchitis and urinary infections for centuries. Turns out there was real science behind Grandma's remedy the whole time. Growing it is almost insultingly easy. Stick a root cutting in the ground at an angle. Walk away. The colder the ground gets before harvest, the stronger that root becomes. But if horseradish surprised you, the next plant is going to surprise you more. Because it's not sold in the produce aisle. It's sold in the flower section. And almost nobody who buys it has any idea what it's actually capable of. It's garden nasturtium, bright orange, bright red, the kind of flower spilling out of someone's hanging basket that you've walked right past 100 times. Here's what's been happening inside those petals the whole time. In lab testing, nasturtium produced one of the biggest bacteria kill zones of any plant in this entire study. A dead zone against staph nearly the width of a golf ball. Another dead zone against a bacteria so dangerous, doctors specifically test pregnant women for it. But labs are one thing, real bodies are another. So researchers ran an actual human trial. Real people. 3 grams of fresh nasturtium a day for 2 weeks, and the compound showed up in their urine. It had travelled all the way through their bodies and landed exactly where certain infections like to start. Their immune systems responded too, producing more of a natural defense molecule without harming a single bit of good bacteria in their gut. A flower from a hanging basket. Doing that. So if horseradish is a hidden weapon and nasturtium is a flower in disguise, the next plant is something you've actively tried to kill. You've pulled it out of your garden with your bare hands. You've thrown it in the trash without a second thought. It's purslane. And most homeowners treat it like an enemy. It pops up uninvited in cracks, in flower beds, in lawns. Thick, fleshy little leaves, almost rubbery to the touch. People rip it out on sight. But in traditional Chinese medicine, this exact weed has a nickname. They call it the natural antibiotic. Here's why. Purslane is loaded with a compound called saponins, up to 32% of the plant by weight. That's an extraordinary number for something growing wild in your yard, uninvited, for free. And those saponins don't just attack bacteria directly. They jam bacteria's communication system. The signal bacteria use to organize, build defenses, and turn dangerous. In one study, animals given purslane extract showed something remarkable. A harmful gut infection was dramatically reduced. And purslane didn't stop there. It repaired the damage the infection had already caused, restoring the gut's natural barrier. So next time purslane shows up uninvited in your garden, you might want to think twice before pulling it. Now here's where this list takes a turn, because the next plant isn't fighting bacteria directly. It's disarming them. It's called lovage. Tall, leafy, tastes like concentrated celery, popular in European kitchens, almost unheard of in American backyards. Here's what makes it different. Some resistant bacteria don't get killed by antibiotics anymore because they've developed a trick. Tiny pumps that physically eject the antibiotic out of their cells before it can work. Lovage jams those pumps. When researchers paired lovage extract with a common antibiotic against resistant bacteria, the antibiotic started working again. A backyard herb, restoring a drug's power after the bacteria thought they'd already won. Next, a plant that doesn't even grow in soil. It grows in moving water, cold streams, shallow creeks. The kind of spot most people would never think to plant a vegetable. It's watercress. And inside those leaves is something dentists would love to know about. Lab tests show watercress extract stops the exact bacteria responsible for cavities and gum disease. Not slows it, stops it. Researchers turned watercress oil into a thick gel and tested it on infected wounds. The wounds healed faster, cleaner. In lab models, it even cut a dangerous hospital bacteria's ability to destroy tissue by nearly 20%. A creek plant, outperforming what you'd expect from a pharmacy shelf. Which brings us to the final plant on this list. The most important one of all, because this one doesn't just fight bacteria. It makes your antibiotics stronger. It's bitter melon, a bumpy, intensely bitter fruit, common across Asia and Africa, almost never grown in American gardens. On its own, bitter melon's antibacterial power is actually inconsistent. Some tests show barely any effect at all. But combine it with a real antibiotic and something remarkable happens. In one study, researchers paired bitter melon extract with the antibiotic streptomycin against a resistant bacteria. Alone, streptomycin created an 18 mm kill zone. Well, add bitter melon. That kill zone exploded to 40 mm, more than double the strength of the antibiotic by itself. That's not a vegetable replacing your medicine. That's a vegetable making your medicine work harder than it ever could alone. So here's where that leaves us. A root that detonates its own chemical weapon. A flower that ends up exactly where infections start. A weed you've thrown away that repairs your gut. An herb that disarms bacteria's escape route. A creek plant that out-heals pharmacy ointments. And a fruit that doubles your antibiotics' power. 6 plants. Sitting on seed racks, ignored, while everyone else plants their 10th tomato. Now, I need to be straight with you on something important. None of these plants replace real antibiotics. If you're dealing with an actual infection, see a doctor. What this research shows is something different. That the plants growing quietly in backyards and the ones we rip out as weeds carry real, lab-tested chemistry. That's worth knowing. That's worth growing. If this opened your eyes to something in your own backyard, hit that like button. Drop a comment with your USDA growing zone. I want to see how many of you can actually grow these where you are. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time, because next week I'm covering the backyard plants doctors specifically warn you never to mix with medication. I'll see you in the next one.